What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your old buddy Carolina Jackpot coming at you. Week number 11 of the college football season is behind us, and we had some big winners, we had some big losers, and we had some picks against the spread. Carolina Jackpot did on Thursday night. If you watch this channel like you're supposed to, you would have seen those picks against the spread. We're going to recap them and see how I did. I really haven't even looked at them yet. We're going to talk that. We're going to talk the winners. We're going to talk the losers. We're going to do all that next. So without further ado, let's get to it. Just glancing at these picks, it looks to me like another week of Jackpot doing bad early in the docket and a little better later in the docket. We shall see. Of course, I did this Thursday night. The UNC Pitt game had already started by the time that I started recording, so I had to scratch that one. Cincinnati, South Florida had Cincy covering. They did not. So that's a big loss there. That was a 45-28 win for them. South Carolina at Mizzou. Mizzou, of course, wins the game by 3 points, and we'll talk about that one plenty later on in the video. New Mexico State at Alabama. New Mexico State fails to cover. Alabama wins that game 59-3. Pretty impressive fashion. They scored a ton of points in the second quarter of that game. Michigan at Penn State. Michigan wins. Another incorrect pick. This one here that looks like a bunch of scribble-scrabble mess. Carolina Jackpot did pick Baylor to cover in that game. I circled Oklahoma inadvertently while I was flapping my yap. So that is a correct pick. If you doubt the validity of that, you can go back and watch Thursday's video, but I'm sure that you find Carolina Jackpot a trustworthy individual. Mississippi State at Auburn. Mississippi State did cover in that ball game. Ended up coming back and winning at 43-34. Northwestern I had covered against Wisconsin. They didn't. Lost by 28. It's 35-7 game there. UConn and Clemson. Clemson fails to cover the spread. That's about all they did wrong yesterday. 44-7 win over UConn. They let them take the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, but other than that, and UConn didn't do much of anything. Syracuse at Louisville. Surprising one here. Syracuse gets blown out 41-3. Kind of unexplainable there. Rutgers did cover, though, against Indiana. Solid pick there. 38-3 win against them. Ooh, boy. Getting on over to page number 2. West Virginia at K-State. Had K-State covering the 6.5 in this game, and they did. They won 34-17. UCF, SMU had SMU covering. They blew UCF out. East Carolina had them covering against Memphis, the 5.5, and they did. They won that game in overtime. Nice win there for East Carolina. Western Kentucky and Rice. Western Kentucky covers that one 42-21. The final score there against Rice. Georgia State Coastal. Wrong on that one. Georgia State upsets Coastal 42-40. Shine's wearing off the mullet boys down there. It's your second loss, I think. Southern Miss, excuse me, I'm looking at the scoreboard and not the paper. Had Arizona covering against Utah, and why am I having to scroll around to look for this one? It's not popping out at me. They did. Arizona loses 38-29. There's another decent performance by Arizona. Georgia covers against Tennessee, 41-17. Go back and I'm going to retitle that video I made yesterday morning when I talked about Georgia, Tennessee. I'm going to call it Calling My Shot. Carolina Jackpot pulled a Babe Ruth. I called my shot. I called the final score of that game, 41-17. You know, I mean, that was just luck. That was just luck. And I'm not here to toot my own horn, but toot. Purdue and Ohio State. Purdue gets blown out. 59-31, so they don't cover that one. I had Minnesota covering against Iowa, and they did. Final score 27-22 in favor of Iowa. They cover the 5. It's nice to have a little hook there. Southern Miss at UTSA. This one was mind-boggling. Game stayed scoreless for a long time, and then UTSA was able to get a 27-17 win They didn't exactly play great there. Miami and Florida State. Florida State does cover against Miami. So you know about that. We'll talk about that one in a minute too. Boston College at Georgia Tech. Boston College covers 41-30 over Tech. Duke, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech covers with ease, 48-17. Iowa State and Texas Tech. I had Texas Tech covering, and they not only covered, they won the game outright, 41-38. Nice upset win there for Texas Tech. I had Troy covering against Louisiana, and that was an incorrect pick. Maryland and Michigan State. I had Michigan State covering. They win 40-21. UTEP, North Texas. I took the bait on this one, and I got burned. North Texas won that game, 2017. Some of these are just nuts. Arch State, ULM, had ULM covering, and they disappoint. What a weird team to figure that out. They're just hard to figure out. They beat Troy, and they beat Liberty, both good teams. But then they got housed by a bunch of terrible teams, and then they lose yesterday to Butch Jones. I don't get that. Stanford and Oregon State. I had Oregon State covering, and they did, 35-14. I had Texas A&M covering against Ole Miss. That didn't happen. I had Kentucky covering against Vandy. That didn't happen either. Kentucky with a mediocre ho-hum win there. Arizona State, 35-30. Arizona State fails to cover against Washington. They won the game 35-30. Spread was 5.5. NC State at Wake Forest. I had NC State covering the 2, and that one. Nope. That's wrong. Wake won by 3. Notre Dame, Virginia. I have Virginia covering there. That one's wrong too. I had Arkansas. Let's see. Arkansas covering the 2.5 against LSU, and they did. Yeah, they won 16-13. Kansas at Texas. We'll talk about this one in a minute too. Incorrect pick. Texas loses, so not a cover there. Oklahoma State covers against TCU, blew them out of the water, 63-17. My lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels was Washington State against Oregon. I told people to take that one on the money line, and Washington State kind of disappointed. This one actually ended up being a push, though, according to my numbers. Washington State loses 38-24. And finally, I had Nevada covering against San Diego State, and they did. They lose. It was 23-21, San Diego State coming out on top there. The little hook comes through for us once again, about 3 times here. So let me total this up. Jackpot finishing up the week 19-19-1 against the spread. Not a great week. When it hit higher than 50%. However, it was a nice bounce back week. At the first page, if you saw that, I had a lot of wrong picks on there. But I came through with some decent picks later on in the day. Should have known better picks. I would have to say Notre Dame and Virginia. I found out later on in the week that Virginia's quarterback was probably not going to play. But then I went and researched it, and it's like he may play, he may not play. We don't know. So, just kind of betting blindly, I just, rolled the dice and said, if he doesn't play, then maybe they'll have something for. But it happens. I probably, knowing that, though, I shouldn't have taken them in that game. Another one that probably should have known better pick. Probably, I don't know. I'm going to have to say Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Kentucky's not a good team, and they're just not that impressive. So I should have probably known better about that. Probably Ole Miss and Texas A&M could have could have probably done a little better there as well. I just never have thought that Ole Miss was a very good team, and I just thought they were kind of overrated. But they looked decent yesterday. I have to give it to them. Purdue and Ohio State's probably the other one. Ohio State's just too dynamic on offense for Purdue, and I should have known after all those upsets that they've been pulling that they would have to be brought back to reality, and they absolutely were. So probably could have done a little better there.
Well, just looking back over yesterday's slate, now in the background here, I got the South Carolina men's basketball game on. They're in the consolation game of the Asheville tournament because they lost Friday night to Princeton, but they're actually winning by 10 right now against Western Kentucky. It's nice to see they can be a little bit more competitive on the hardwood than they are the gridiron. Who looked good this week? Pittsburgh, a decent win on Thursday night. Had to go to overtime to do it against North Carolina. Kind of let North Carolina come back a little bit there in that game. It looked like they were on cruise control and, just kind of some mistakes down the stretch. But we're still able to get the win. Friday night, Cincinnati, still to me, another unimpressive performance. Yeah, I mean, they beat South Florida, but you still gave up almost 400 yards of offense. You let South Florida put 28 points on the board. You had to score that late touchdown to get that within a 17-point margin. It was a 10-point game. I still not sold on this team. I'm just not. It's not that I'm a Cincinnati hater. I'm just looking at this thing objectively, and to me, there's some good wins against lower level competition. Yeah, I mean they had that big win over Notre Dame, but I mean, how long can we continue to hitch our horse to that fence post? How much longer? Eventually, you're going to have to do something impressive against someone else. And I'm still solidly in the camp of I think they're going to get upset by East Carolina at the end of the year. And everybody will sit here and say, well, just because East Carolina played a close game against the Gamecocks, Carolina jackpot. That's the only reason you say it. No, I'm not. East Carolina, if you've been watching, has gotten pretty hot. I mean, they've won about 3 games in a row. They blew out South Florida. The margin was about the same as what Cincinnati did, but South Florida, East Carolina's not supposed to be as good as Cincinnati. They blew out Temple, and then a nice win on the road yesterday in overtime against Memphis. So, I think that they definitely have the goods there for an upset. I think Cincinnati's going to come off of a game against SMU this weekend at home. I think they'll probably win. And I think they're not going to be up for that game. And it's on the road. I think they could get burned. Alabama just continues to just roll right along. 59-3 against New Mexico State. New Mexico State's not good, but, I mean, that's what you got to do. Michigan, Penn State. Michigan did what they had to do there. Tough defensive struggle there against Penn State, and they come out on top. Got to give it to Michigan. They look pretty good this year. I'm proud of Baylor. I'm proud of Baylor for that's one of the teams that I had pegged to pull a money line upset, and they did. I knew all year long Oklahoma had been playing not to lose, and Baylor looked bad last week. I figured they would come in focused this week, and they did exactly that. Nice win for that program, 27-14 over Oklahoma. Oklahoma not making playoffs. They're not. In fact, they've probably got a couple more losses on the schedule. Probably got a couple more losses on that schedule down the stretch. Mississippi State, very nice come from behind win against Auburn. They were down 28-3 in that ball game. They come back and win 43-34 on the road too. Against the Tigers. 415 yards through the air for Will Rogers, 6 touchdowns, getting no interceptions. Held the Auburn rushing attack. Stank Bigsby and Hunter held them in check. Only 106 yards rushing for Auburn, and one of that was all on one play, mostly. So good win there on the road for Mississippi State, scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter, coming from behind to beat Auburn. Wisconsin, workmanlike 35-7 win over Wisconsin, or over Northwestern. Florida, I don't know, what's going on there. Man, 52 points they gave up to they gave it up to a bad FCS team in Stanford, a bad team. They had a losing record, a 4-5 going into this game. I mean, what? I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't know what's going on. I mean, you were able to come back and win the game, but my Lord, I mean, to be down at halftime, to have given up like 45 points to a bad FCS team is just. After last week's performance, I thought that, y'all would come out this week and actually blow this team's doors off and try to get back some of the semblance of looking like the Florida of old. And instead, this was probably even a sorrier performance than the one on the road against the Gamecocks. I mean, it really probably was. You don't let an FCS team, especially a bad one, I know FCS, FBS, I know upsets happen every now and again, but they're generally just by a few points if they do happen. They're not winning by like 3 touchdowns over a team, especially a team like Florida. So no excuse. The Florida fan can't be very happy right now with Dan Mullen or what's going on in Gainesville. I mean, you just fired your defensive coordinator for doing a shitty job. And then you go out and deliver one of the worst defensive performances I've seen by a Power 5 team this year. Florida definitely trending down. Clemson does what they have to do, 44-7 against UConn. They let the opening kickoff go back for a touchdown. Yeah, I posted it up here on YouTube, and I actually shared it to TigerNet. I have a fake Clemson profile. I can go on TigerNet and post some of my videos sometimes. And yesterday, this one, I posted it up in their football room with the caption, "Look at this, even the Coots are laughing at us." Whatever, it still gets some more traffic, and they didn't like it very much, but it's fine. And they cruised. That was the only thing UConn did all day long. It's the only thing they did all day long. They did intercept the ukulele, which is unexplainable. He still didn't look good throwing the football, and he got hurt. So there we have that. Just really nothing stands out to me. It's a 44-7 win over one of the worst teams in FCS history, probably, in UConn. 41-3, Louisville, all over Syracuse. I mean, we thought that Dino Babers was out of the woods. This was a guy that was talking about being on the hot seat going into this season. We heard, Syracuse is probably going to be in the bottom of the ACC, going to be the worst team in the ACC, and it's not even going to be close. And they came out and they looked pretty decent. They beat Liberty. They got a nice win against what. I can't even think now. They've had more, more. I'm going to have to click on their schedule to see exactly. They've had more close calls. They've won 5 games this year. Have had more close calls against decent teams like Clemson. Almost knocked off Wake Forest. They almost knocked off Florida State. They beat Virginia Tech. Beat Boston College. We thought Syracuse was starting to turn the corner, and yesterday they just take a huge step back against a Louisville team that's just not very good. So I don't know where we go from here with Dino Babers' team. He's 5-5 right now, and many have thought that this team would be able to make it to a bowl. They've got, and they've got a road game with NC State coming up, and then a home game with Pitt to finish the season up. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think you're going to win either of those. I think you're going to finish up 5-7, and I think some kind of decision will be made there about Babers. And I hate to see that, man. He seems like a really good coach. He just doesn't have a lot to work with, and yesterday's humiliating defeat didn't do a lot to help his cause. Rutgers 38-3 against Indiana. man, where did Indiana's offense go? This is a team that, was picked at, maybe the sleeper team in the Big Ten East this year. Maybe a fringe top 10 team. Dude, they are 0-7 in conference, 2-8 overall. They are horrible. And I know that, they lost their quarterback in Michael Penix Jr., but damn, I think he just meant a lot more to that team than anyone would realize. They're anemic without him. Yesterday, held under 200 yards by Rutgers, Rutgers, they didn't put video game numbers up themselves, but they did what they had to do to win. I took that one there. That was one of my correct picks for jackpot. Indiana was actually favored by 7, and I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? In some of those lines, I think they're just trying to suck you in. Well, that one, I really think that somebody just screwed up, and they just had the wrong team favored. Rutgers has got Schiano there. They're well coached. They may not have the athletes, but I'm telling you, in a couple of years, mark my words, they're going to be something to be contended with. They're recruiting at a very high level, especially at a very high level for Rutgers. And with him as head coach, they could be doing some special things up in the Garden State real soon. Kansas State 34-17 over West Virginia. West Virginia is not very good this year at all. SMU puts 55 up on the board against UCF. And we already talked about East Carolina beating Memphis 30-29 in overtime. Just a really good win there for that program. And I'm happy to see that. I think East Carolina's got some decent fans. They got a good fan base. I enjoyed my time up there at the beginning of September. So I'll be solidly behind them the rest of the season. Houston, no problem with Temple. Army put 63 on the board. Utah, it was good to see Utah finally get ranked. Number 24, sneak into the polls. 38-29 win over Arizona. Are they the best team in the Pac-12 South? Probably so. They're 6-1, and they're on a collision course to play Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. I think they've played in the Pac-12 championship game before, so we'll see how that goes. Oregon's, they won yesterday. We'll talk about them in a minute. Coastal Carolina, like I said, the shine has worn off of the mullet boys down there. Former South Carolina interim coach Sean Elliott takes his Georgia State team up to Conway, and all he does is give them a 42-40 beating. Looks like Georgia State, 175 yards on the ground yesterday. Former South Carolina defensive back Jamias Williams. If you're a Gamecock fan, you'll remember him. He's the little guy out of the state of Georgia that was a pretty good recruit for us back in, I think, 2017. Signing class. He ended up hitting the transfer portal after South Carolina. He was a good kid. Just wasn't a great defensive back in college, but he was a good athlete. He was a kid that returned a lot of punts and kickoffs in high school. So what does he do? Guess what? He goes to Georgia State, a place that actually utilizes him. And utilizes him and to his strengths. And I'm glad to see him doing well. Coastal Carolina, which also, quarterback Grayson McCall, didn't play yesterday. This Carpenter guy, 17-29, 233 yards, a touchdown and a pick. So, probably would have won the game had he been playing, but that's the way it goes. You got backups for a reason, and they're supposed to be able to come up there and deliver the goods for you, especially when you're the better team. Appalachian State, 31-7 over South Alabama. They're 6-2, 5-1 in the conference right now. Former Gamecock quarterback Jake Bentley didn't play for South Alabama yesterday. He's hurt. The kid that was in there in his place, this Trotter, 21 of 38, 226 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. So that's not very good numbers. Chase Bryce, former Clemson quarterback, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for App State. Bryce is a decent quarterback, but he likes to throw a lot of interceptions too. Georgia, 41-17 over Tennessee. Like I said, Carolina Jackpot actually predicted the final score of that game yesterday morning in the video, and it went about like I thought it would. I thought that Tennessee would probably come out there and punch them in the mouth early and maybe get a lead. I even thought maybe Tennessee would even be leading going into halftime. None of that happened. It was 10-7, and then I think Georgia had like a 24-10 halftime lead. And they really didn't have to do a lot from that point forward. It was just pretty much cruise control. Stetson Bennett, 17-29, 213 yards. A decent day for him again. Once again, the Vol fan or the Georgia fans, I'm sure if JT Daniels had been in there, we would have scored 60 plus, right? Hooker for Tennessee, he threw the ball 37 times. And completed 24 of those, a touchdown, interception. Joe Milton actually got into the action and threw a touchdown. I believe that was late in that game. What really hurt Tennessee was their inability to run the football against Georgia. 36 rushes yesterday, only 55 yards. That's way less than 2 yards a carry. Not going to be able to win a ball game like that. Georgia rushed for 274 yards. Just an outstanding performance all the way around from the Bulldogs yesterday. And, with 2 games left on our schedule, I mean, they're going undefeated. I mean, it is just, it's all but in the bag now. You got Charleston Southern this weekend, and then the annual matchup with Georgia Tech coming up after that. Georgia's just going to absolutely massacre them. I don't even know where is that game being played at. It's at Georgia Tech. It doesn't matter. That place is basically, when they play, it's basically Sanford Stadium southwest, I guess you'd say. So Purdue, once again, the shine wore off them yesterday real quick to 59-31 against Ohio State in a game which, a lot of us picked Purdue there to cover that number. Thought, they've been upsetting everybody else. I mean, why can't it happen again? Lightning doesn't strike that many times in a row. Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, nice game yesterday. For them, UTSA, 27-17 ho-hum win against Southern Miss. Scored 10 points in the fourth quarter, which the game was tied at 17. I don't really know what was going on there with that one. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you, I didn't watch it. It was during the South Carolina debacle, so didn't get a chance to really see what was going on there. But looks like McCormick for UTSA. He rushed 19 times for 90 yards, which is 19 times. A running back at that level normally would get more yards than that. So maybe therein lied the problem. I'm really not sure, but facts are facts. They're still undefeated. So good job there. UTSA deserves some credit. And sometimes you're going to have those games. Sometimes you're just going to have those things happen in the course of a season, especially when you're an undefeated team like that, and you've never been in this position before. You're not always going to perform. You're not always going to perform great. I mean, the pressure's on. The more wins you start racking up, the pressure becomes greater and greater every week. So I think that might be a little bit of what the problem was yesterday with UTSA, with the struggle bus win against one of the worst teams in FBS in Southern Miss. Florida State, 31-28 win over Miami yesterday. Great win for Florida State. It's a great win for them in the program. They're 4-6 now. Can they get bowl eligible? I don't know. Do they beat Florida at the end of the year? It's possible. If Florida gets themselves right, are they going to beat Florida State? Yeah, they will. If they don't, beat Florida State. Do I think Dan Mullen loses his job? Probably so. And at this point, I can't really tell that guy doesn't not want that to happen, if that makes any sense. He just looks like like he's just phoned it in. They got a game against Florida State coming up next week, or Boston College coming up next week on the road. That's going to be a tough test. Going to be a tough test for FSU. They're 2.5-point underdogs. Dracovic has come back for Boston College, so that makes that a little bit of a tougher game there. Honestly, I think that Florida State stands a better chance of beating Florida to go, win 5 games than they do to beat Boston College. I would say winning 6 is a stretch for them. But nonetheless, yesterday, a very, very impressive win for them. Again, is Miami a good team? No, they're not. But they finally got this monkey off their back. They had lost several in a row, not 7, several in a row to their in-state rival. And look, Florida State right now is probably the best program in the state of Florida. If you take all 4 of the better known, and I'm not, no shade here towards IU or FAU. You take UCF, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. Florida State's trajectory is trending upward a lot faster than any of these other teams are. So I think this win is going to be huge for recruiting, and I think it's going to be really huge for the morale and psyche of this program going forward. Boston College, 41-30 win over Georgia Tech. Good win there for them on the road. Virginia Tech blows Duke out 48-17. Is David Cutcliffe around for another year at Duke? I have to think he's not. I mean, this guy is, he's really on up there in age. He's pretty advanced anyway. And I'm not saying anything bad about older folks, but he just looks tired. He really does just look tired. He doesn't look energized. He looks like Frank Beamer did the last few years there at Virginia Tech. This win, is that enough to save Justin Fuente's job? I don't know. He's 5-5, and they got the game coming up at the end of the season against Maryland or against Virginia on the road. If Brennan Armstrong's back and healthy for Virginia, they're not going to win that game next week. Virginia Tech's on the road at Miami. They're a 7-point underdog. How that one's going to go, I have no clue. That may be the battle of 2 coaches who are circling the drain and trying to save their jobs. Maybe one does, maybe one don't. Maybe they both lose their jobs. Maybe both of them come back for another year. I don't know. 41-38, Texas Tech, nice win over an Iowa State team that, is there a team this year that's been a bigger disappointment than Iowa State? They were slated to be a playoff contender. This is Matt Campbell's best team, yada, 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 and da. And right now we're sitting here at what? We're sitting here at 5-4 or 6-4, and struggling to just even make a decent bowl game. So it was a bad loss yesterday. The Texas Tech team doesn't even have a head coach. Well, they do have a head coach, but they don't have a head coach right now. They hired one. So nice shot in the arm there for them. Michigan State, 40-21, cruises against Maryland. No real surprise there. Oregon State, continues to impress with a 35-14 win over Stanford. Oregon State's sitting here at 6-4 right now, 4-3 in conference. They got a game against Arizona State at home next week. They're underdogs. I got to think if they can pull an upset there, then they can ride that wave into that road game at Oregon, the last game of the season. I'd really kind of like to see someone upset Oregon. I just don't think they're that good. I just don't. Playoff contenders, they are. By virtue of their record, they beat Ohio State. You can't take that away from them. Would they beat Ohio State right now? I'm 75% sure they wouldn't, but it doesn't matter. They beat them when they played. Texas A&M, real disappointing yesterday with a 29-19 loss on the road at Ole Miss. I mean, Texas A&M offense is just not good. I mean, it's just not good, and getting held to 19 points by Ole Miss is just downright kind of embarrassing. They scored 44 against South Carolina, but once again, that's not a very good litmus test there. Bad loss for Texas A&M. That ended their chances of being able to possibly win the SEC West there. That's Alabama's to lose. They'll end up winning out. They got Arkansas, I think, this coming up week. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl the next week. Kentucky, 34-17, against Vanderbilt. Just a ho-hum performance there from Kentucky. And I really thought that they would come out and do some things against Vanderbilt. But Will Levis, 177 yards passing. Rodriguez continues to have a good season, put up 114 yards yesterday. But it's still, scored 24 points in the second quarter. Kentucky did, and then it's just kind of like they phoned it in. They were up 31-3, and then we only scored 3 points the rest of the game. You got to kind of keep your foot on the gas a little bit. Arizona State, decent win on the road at Washington, 35-30. Washington, I think their coach was he suspended or something because he yelled at a player and pushed him in the back of the helmet. What kind of soft society are we living in? Never mind. I'm not even going to go there. We all know how soft it is. Notre Dame 28-3 over Virginia. Had Virginia had Armstrong playing at quarterback, I think the story may have been a little different there, but just not able to get anything going at all yesterday against that Notre Dame defense. Wake Forest 45-42 did what they had to do against NC State. NC State 4 touchdowns, 2 picks for Devin Leary, threw for over 400 yards. That would be concerning going into the Clemson game if you were playing a competent quarterback this week for Clemson that actually could complete forward passes and throw for that many yards. But the fact is you aren't. Sam Hartman, 3 interceptions last night. You got to clean that up. Clemson does have a good defense, so that's a little bit alarming and could be a problem there. But Wake Forest, nice win against NC State, a team that I thought NC State would win that game. I really did. Arkansas wins 16-13 in overtime against a terrible LSU team. Kansas, this is one of my favorite stories today. Kansas, 57-56 win on the road at Texas. I picked Texas to cover the spread because, normally Kansas gets annihilated. And why it's absolutely nutty this year that the 2 best performances that Kansas has put on the field in conference play is against the 2 biggest, maybe not the 2 best teams in the conference, but against the 2 biggest names in the conference. The 2 teams that are leaving to go to the SEC, that being Texas and Oklahoma. Should the SEC maybe renege on one of them and offer a spot to Kansas? Would they be more competitive in the SEC than one of these 2? I mean, I don't know. I took them to not cover the spread because everybody else has been annihilating Kansas every week. And you know what? They'll probably go out next week and get annihilated again. But who do they play next week? Who they play? Kansas plays at TCU. And then they end up the season at home against West Virginia. Do they win another game? I don't know. Probably not. But you got to feel good for them. That program has been downtrodden for years. They haven't had a winning season since, I think George Bush was president last time Kansas had a winning season. They had a big lead. And then, they gave it up and were like, well, shit, Texas is going to win this thing. The thing goes to overtime. Texas scores first. Kansas gets the ball. They score a touchdown. I'm like, oh, Lord, he's going to go for 2 instead of just kicking an extra point here and continuing in overtime. Usually, I don't like that. I just don't think it's a high percentage thing to do. But, man, that Kansas quarterback rolled out and hit that old fullback with that pass. I mean, did the nation not all cheer collectively when we saw that happen? We did. That was just a really special win for Kansas. So good job there by the Jayhawks. They got a first-year head coach in Lance Leopold. I think they're going to get better. I think they're going to progressively get better. Are they going to become a 10-win team? No. I think that the best that he could ever hope to do is maybe a 6-7-win team. But I do think Kansas outkicked their coverage when they hired that guy. I think he's a good coach. He's done nothing but win wherever he's been at. And I think that he's going to have them on the right end of the score more often than not. It's going to take a while, but he'll get them there. Oklahoma State just obliterates TCU, just wipes them off the map 63-17 after TCU had that big win over Baylor the week before. The coachless Horned Frogs go out and get shredded, 447 yards on the ground for Oklahoma State. Goodness gracious, man. That is, wow. Those are video game numbers. And so there it is. UCLA, 44-20 over Colorado. Decent win for them there, 6-4. They're bowl eligible. Now, Chip Kelly's team they got USC coming up this week. So we'll see how that one goes. Of course, Oregon, 38-24 win over Washington State. I had given that out as maybe a possible money line upset there, but just didn't happen. Just not enough gas in the tank for Washington State. They had a game tied actually at halftime, but Oregon goes out and scores 24 points in the second half, and they pull away 38-24 win at home. Now Oregon with the test coming at the end of the season in the rivalry game against the Beeve. But before that, they got a huge test coming up next week against Utah on the road, and Utah is actually favored in that game. Wouldn't be surprised to see Utah win. Also, wouldn't be surprised to see these two probably match up again in the Pac-12 championship game. So they could play 2 times in the course of 3 weeks. But yeah, Oregon heading into this one, they are now 9-1. And then, of course, San Diego State with a 23-21 win over Nevada, which is a pretty good passing team with Carson Strong out there. The Aztecs get the nice win. USC and Cal were supposed to play last night. Both these teams have losing. Who would have thought USC would have a losing record at this point? I didn't, but they actually postponed that game due to coronavirus outbreak with the Cal players. And I think that's the first game that we have seen postponed due to COVID-19 this year. Who would have thought that we would be all the way to week 11 of the season before we saw a postponement for COVID-19 this year? I certainly didn't. I mean, I thought that we, would have probably seen at least, if I had to throw it out there, at least 15 to 20 games postponed by this point. But yeah, no. So, pretty good job there with everyone involved. The training staffs, the athletic departments, just everybody doing their job there to slow the spread. So that's a good thing to see. Now, finishing this video up, South Carolina versus Missouri yesterday. And I know I got on here last night and I was kind of in my feelings. And to be quite honest with you, I feel like I had every right to be upset. I had every right to be in my feelings. Did I give the team a little bit too hard of a time? I probably did. But you know what? They've been giving me a hard time for a long time, man. Been giving me a hard time for a long time. I said some things that I may not have really meant, that I was, going to find a new team to pull for, this and that. I mean, I'm always going to be a Gamecock, but, there was just no reason for them to go out there and shut down both legs yesterday against a bad Missouri team. Was that a good Missouri? No, that was not a good Missouri team. That was a bad Missouri team. Their defense is absolutely hideous. It's hideous. And it will be hideous again the next time they go out and play. And they'll be hideous the week after that. Okay, they didn't do any. It was what you did not do. It's what you didn't do. You go up 7-0 in this game. You're in the red zone driving and fixing to go up 14-0. We fumbled the ball. And, that from that point forward, it just totally just turned the momentum of that game. The turnovers, Jason Brown, he didn't look good in this game. And the reason why the kid didn't look good is very simple. Offensive line play. That offensive line play was absolutely abysmal yesterday. And I don't understand it. There's no reasoning for it. How could you have looked so good against Florida and look so horrible against this Missouri team? I mean, y'all can't adjust to a blitz. I mean, you can't. I mean, is it just like, they decided to throw a couple of wrinkles in and do a few things out of the norm, and you just can't pick it up? I mean, and if that's the case, then if there's no, I hear it's talent issue. It's not a talent issue on the offensive line. It's just simply not. They paved the way for Kevin Harris to run for 1,100 yards last year in 10 SEC games, and I've heard all this shit. I've heard, well, he did a lot of his running after contact last year, and he's not the same player as he was last year. And it wasn't really the offensive line. I even had some idiot today in a Gamecock fan group on Facebook tell me that, well, you see, first of all, his numbers were skewed last year because opposing teams basically let him run between the 20s because they knew that we wouldn't be able to score on them once we got into the red zone. What kind of fucking sense does that make? Whose game plan would that have been? Nobody's. Hello? McFly. What happens with that game plan when he fucking scores? We just let him free. No, we're just going to let him free run between the 20s, and they won't be able to score on us anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, the dumbest thing I've ever seen or heard this week, and I hear a lot of dumb things throughout the course of a week. That takes the cake. But this offensive line coach at the end of the year, he's got to go. He has absolutely got to go. And this is the point where Shane Beamer is going to have to quickly grow up as a head coach. It's all well and good this first year. Yes, we knew there would be some rocky times. We knew that things probably weren't going to go our way a lot of the times this season. But that's just inexcusable for that offensive line to play that bad, especially, and even a Phil Steele, which is normally pretty accurate on his predictions. There's a lot of people say, well, Phil Steele doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Yeah, he does. He's actually pretty accurate with his predictions in his magazine for the most part. Only people that say things like that are people who get disappointed by things that he says about their team to begin the season off with, and maybe things don't go that way for you. He's generally pretty accurate, and he rated South Carolina's defensive or offensive line the third best returning unit in the SEC. They are the absolute worst. If anyone has a worse offensive line in the SEC right now, I would love to see who it is. But they're just not. They're not good. They've not gelled as a unit this year under this guy, and I frankly can't stand to even look at him. So he needs to make some tough decisions, and if it involves cutting him loose and finding someone else to coach the offensive line, so be it. Defensively, South Carolina pass defense looked decent for the most part in this game. They did give up a deep ball once again. And I had said earlier on that I didn't think that we would have to worry about Connor Bazelak with any deep balls because I didn't think he'd play anyway. Well, he did play, and he threw a 60-yard touchdown bomb. He's not known for that. He's normally more of an intermediate passer, but South Carolina just gets absolutely burned on deep balls, and did it again yesterday. So, I was pretty unhappy to see that happen. Other than that, though, defensively played pretty well against the pass. The run defense, just absolutely another story altogether. Tyler Beatty, the guy, he's a decent running back. He's not a great running back, but he's decent. He'll get yards, though, against teams with piss poor run defenses, and that's exactly what he got yesterday. 209 yards yesterday. He carried the ball 34 times, and that's all they had to do. Was just hand the ball off to him, and then he was shredding South Carolina. But the X-Lax, 15 of 23, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. He had a 52 QBR. Jason Brown, 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, had more yards than Bedazzled sack, and more completions, but had a 27.6 QB rating. So I don't know how that happens. But once again, E.J. Jenkins yesterday, who I have begged for South Carolina to target, he gets targeted yesterday exactly one time, again, just like he does every week. E.J. Jenkins is a 6'8" wide receiver, and this time he was targeted by Jason Brown only one time. Jason Brown's the guy who was throwing the ball to him at St. Francis. They came down here together. So just a disappointing performance all the way around. The game plan of not running the ball, that we got to throw it around all the time to try to win, just really had me upset. And we did rush. We carried 35 rushing attempts yesterday, for 57 yards. 57 yards. Now, it would be 31 rushes for 107 yards if you took away the negative 50 yards rushing by Jason Brown when he was getting sacked. Zaquander White, 60 yards on the ground yesterday, along with 21. 6 yards a carry. Every time he touches the ball, 6 yards a carry. But we won't give the ball to him for some reason. Kevin Harris, 14 carries, only 36 yards. That's a little bit more than 2 yards a carry. I mean, the wrong guy's getting the football here. The wrong guy's getting the football. And they didn't pound the rock. South Carolina should have ran the ball at least 10 more times yesterday, and they would have won that game. It's just like I said. If you keep chipping away at a dam, keep chipping it away, eventually the dam is going to break. Eventually, the Mizzou shitty run defense would have broken. Period. I just think it would have. But that also goes to the point that the offensive line play was horrible. So maybe it wouldn't have broken. I don't know. But the bottom line is South Carolina came into this game. They were too overconfident. They were overconfident, beating their chests about beating that Florida team last week. And take nothing away from it. I know everybody says Florida didn't care. Florida's checked out. Dan Mullen's checked out. They fired the defensive coordinator. They were sick. Some of them had the flu, the Black Plague. Some of them had AIDS. I heard every excuse under the sun as for why Florida performed so poorly in that football game, and no credit given to South Carolina whatsoever. South Carolina played a good game. They came out, they punched Florida in the mouth. They did what they had to do, and we won. South Carolina beat them into submission the first half, and then they quit. That's what happened. They beat them up the first half, and they quit. But, I'm used to not getting credit for decent performances. Now, you just took all the positive energy from that really good win at home. You took one step forward, and now you've taken 2 steps back. We cannot continue to do this 1 step forward, 2 step back thing. We can't continue to do that. It's going to start costing the program down the road. The one thing I can say, Beamer has, I think, like the number 21 recruiting class right now, according to 24/7 Sports, which is decent for a first-year head coach. 21 nationally is decent. However, that's probably good for about, from 9th, 10th in the SEC. So he still needs to do better on that front. But the one good thing that I can say is, and this is a knock on wood moment, we haven't had any decommitments. Under Muschamp, decommitments were the norm. It happened all the time. In fact, you could almost set your watch to it. So I'm happy about that. This early signing day is in December, which the early signing day is now pretty much signing day. Your class is pretty much done after that. I'd like to see us, get a few more nice pickups there. And he's really going to have to cultivate the transfer portal hard. He's going to have to cultivate it hard. And I think he can. I think he can get some decent players in here. I think that there are going to be some out there to be had. Because Muschamp's last recruiting class wasn't great. And then the recruiting class that came in this past year, number 76 in the country. And that's not Shane Beamer's fault. There were a ton of decommitments when they fired Will Muschamp. And Shane Beamer came in, and we were under number 100 in recruiting when he came in. And he was able to salvage that. But he's a likable coach. He's delivering a good message. I think he's doing a good job of selling his message to most of the fan base. He's doing a good job of selling it to recruits. I'm really sure he's got a good shtick, meaning, he can talk the talk, and I think he gets people bought into that. But we'll see. We'll see going down the road. I mean, I think that he's someone that people a higher level kid would want to play for. So hopefully he can get some decent athletes in here, and we can kind of rebuild this roster together. But we can't lose winnable games. There's not that many of them on the schedule. And teams like Mizzou, which are not good teams, I mean, South Carolina has more talent than them right now, and South Carolina should have beaten Mizzou. And Mizzou's recruiting at a pretty high level to themselves. I mean, for what they are. So, this is another. You can't afford to let this team be another Kentucky that passes you in the SEC East pecking order. You just can't do it. So that's my thoughts on that. Disappointing loss. Sitting here 5-5. We need to win the game bowl eligibility. And you called me crazy, and I haven't even looked at this one yet. But I still think that it's doable for South Carolina. This coming Saturday, Auburn is a 7-point favorite over us at home. That's probably about right. I'm surprised it's not a little bit more than that. But to me, Auburn is a team that South Carolina matches up better with than a Mizzou. And yes, I know Auburn is not. Auburn is a better team than Mizzou all the way around. But I think Auburn is kind of reeling right now. I think that, Bo Nix is a guy that doesn't play good under pressure. He doesn't play good on the road. And I had a Auburn fan on here today telling me I'm always trashing Bo Nix. I'm not always trashing Bo Nix. I hardly even talk about him that much. But I do know enough to know he's not a great quarterback on the road, and he's not a great quarterback under pressure. And if South Carolina can do what they did last year against him, we could see a repeat performance of that. So I think this is definitely a winnable game. The Clemson game, it's a winnable game too. It really is. And the Clemson fans, these idiots are sitting here, they act like they're still, it's still regular old Clemson, cruising to the playoffs, and we have absolutely zero chance. South Carolina has an excellent chance at that one, and quite honestly, I would say that right now it's probably 55-45 in Clemson's favor, but we'll see a lot this weekend. This weekend will be very telling as to what I might think the outcome of that one would be. Clemson's favored at home against Wake Forest this week. Spoiler alert, I think Wake Forest beats you. I think Wake Forest beats you. I think that Dave Clawson has probably had this one circled all year long. and I think they knock you off in the dump on the hump, the mistake by the polluted ass, nasty, filthy Lake Hartwell, which is nasty and polluted because it's the rainwater washes remnants from the Clinton-Tard campus into it. That's why it's so nasty and polluted. But anyway, guys, that's about what I've got to say about week number 11. Hopefully week number 12 brings us some more pleasure, some more great football. Hard to believe the season's almost over as far as the regular season goes, but we still got bowl games, playoffs, all that good stuff to come, and I'm looking forward to at least another exciting 6 weeks of college football down the stretch. So if you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to it. We are currently sitting here and we are teetering, guys, on that 10,000 subscriber mark, which is a personal goal of mine. Am I going to get a little gold thing from YouTube, a plaque to put on my wall for that? Excuse me. No, I don't think they do. I think you have to get hundreds of thousands subs to get something like that. But hey, if we get to 10,000, we'll be a tenth of the way there. Right now, we're at 9961, only 39 more subs. Smash the like button, share the channel. Let's see if we can get to 10,000 subs by the end of this coming week. I think we can. I think we definitely can. Appreciate everybody who showed up on these live streams and shown a lot of support there. I really do appreciate you guys. I will see y'all later. I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. Peace, and I'm out. Go Cox.